there is 1.2, now it's 1.2.5, so it's all the time changing.
Okay.
So it's quite hard to find where is it, but now I found it and I started. So hi everyone, I have a beloved teacher. She's here, and she was working very hard for prepare for our teaching the material. So I said it again for the recording. If you have a question, so just read before what is sent for us, then ask yourself the question and see if you understand the material. And then if you don't understand, or you see that it's a little bit difficult, or don't sure, or everything that is pop up, so please write to me. I will put my email inside, so we can send her after it the question, and she can, איך אומרים להרחיב? elaborate about the issues that is not clear enough. So Geshe-ma, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So let's start, as usual, with a meditation, just focusing on your breathing. And then visualize in the space in front of you an emanation of all the enlightened qualities you yourself will attain in the form of Buddha Shakyamuni. Who's inseparable from Nāgārjuna and your personal spiritual master. And at the same time, think that you're surrounded by all sentient beings for whose benefit we're here. And then generate what's called affectionate love for all sentient beings. Based on our dependence on sentient beings. On their amazing potential. With a mind whose nature is the same as the nature of the mind of a Buddha. So based on all that, generate this feeling of closeness and acceptance, combined with a deep concern for their welfare. Which then gives way to great compassion. That is an affectionate mind that not only wishes for each and every sentient being to be free from all samsaric suffering and its causes, but also wishes to personally assist sentient beings. Help them to overcome samsaric suffering and its causes. Which then gives way to the altruistic attitude, the mind that not only wishes to help sentient beings overcome suffering, but is determined, takes personal responsibility for helping sentient beings overcome all samsaric suffering and its causes. Which we can effectively do once we become enlightened, which is why let's generate the mind of enlightenment, the aspiration to become fully enlightened, reach the state of a Buddha for the benefit of each and every sentient being. Which is also the motivation for us to continue to study Nāgārjuna's text. And without letting go of the visualization and our mind of enlightenment, let's recite the prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Great. Okay. Then the Lamrim. Let's go back to death. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yep, here it is. Now we've concluded the first 6 aspects of the 9-round death meditation. And next are the last 3. Where are they? Oh, here. Yeah, those 3 here. For some reason the mouse doesn't work. Yeah, now it works. All right. Okay, so we've seen already that, of course, we're going to die. There's just no way around it. We're going to die. And secondly, we just don't know when that's going to be. Time of death is uncertain. And now it all comes down to what is it that really helps us at the time of death. So what is important? What is really important, not just at the time of death, what is important now? Now, for instance, outlines here mention wealth is of no help. The thing is with wealth, I mean, having certain possessions, of course they're important. It's not saying that we shouldn't own things, we shouldn't have possessions. It's important to own certain things because they just make life easier. So certain things we do need. If we have them, we spend less time on, I don't know, cooking or other things we need to do. And so therefore we potentially have more time to practice the Dharma. But oftentimes there's the sense that, well, some wealth is good, more is better. And that's the problem, because at some point, not having anything is a burden. So for instance, if you don't have a stove to cook your food on, you have to go and find wood, collect wood, make a fire. So that's a burden. It takes up a lot of time. But if we have too much stuff, then of course, again, we spend so much time just looking after all our stuff. And it gives us a sense of security to a certain degree. However, of course, at the time of death, our attachment to our wealth is a problem. So it's better to let go of our wealth at this point and let go of our attachment and already kind of pass it on, if we can, to others as much as possible, if we know in advance that we're dying. Friends and relatives, again, I mean, they give us a sense of security. They give us a sense of, protection. If things are rough, they can help me. They can give me advice and so forth. But of course, at the time of death, they have no help whatsoever. We have to die alone. And our body that accompanied us our entire life, that has protected us possibly of pain and so forth by moving away from the source of pain, etc., or moving away from people, not being around people that may hurt us. Well, at the time of death, there's no help. There's only one thing that benefits us, which is not even our mind in general. Our mind benefits us only if we practice the Dharma, if we have practiced the Dharma, and if, of course, at the time of death, we continue to do so, especially at the time of death. If hopefully we have a slightly prolonged death so that we have the opportunity to remember what's important. Okay, so for your meditation, it'll be good to remember all this, all in preparation, of course, of death. And not just those last 3, but of course in combination with the first 6 that we've gone through. All right, so that's about the Lamrim. And next are the questions. So I got a few questions, which are great. Okay, first, So there are 5 questions altogether and a suggestion. So about the prophecies and their significance in Buddhism. So Shanti's question. Is Shanti here? Yep, there she is. Okay. All right, so some sessions ago, I mentioned prophecies and their significance in Buddhism. Okay, the significance in Buddhism, I'm not going to go into it anyway. The question is not asking about the significance, but you guys tell me as part of your homework, think about it. What could be the significance of a Buddha making a prophecy about a particular practitioner becoming enlightened at this point in time, with this qualities and so forth, having that name, etc.? What could be the significance? Like a prophecy of an enlightened being. No need to go through it today, but just think about it. Common sense, logically, what could be the reasons? What could be the reason? And then how does one distinguish a valid prophecy from an invalid prophecy in Buddhism and in general? Well, I guess if the prophecy is fulfilled, if in the end it comes to be the case. I mean, but of course we don't know right now. That's the problem. In general, we can say, is a prophecy valid or not? Is it in accordance with reality or not? We can tell if it comes true. But do we know right now? No, we don't know. And I guess if it doesn't just have to be a prophecy about when someone will be enlightened, but also about other things. I mean, I don't know what else could it be? Other things. Anything that's going to happen in the future, especially with regard to the Dharma. If these prophecies, if there's a person, even with clairvoyance, I mean, some of the great lamas, the great masters, they have certain clairvoyant powers, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with them. I mean, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that he had clairvoyance, there's just no doubt about it. I mean, I had a few encounters, very, very few with him, but they were so potent. I mean, they were so obviously that Rinpoche had these abilities, and others have so many more experiences. I mean, mine was very little, but it couldn't have just been a coincidence. So again, it happens once, it happens twice, it happens again and again. And at some point, at least you know you can trust it. You know you can trust it. You can trust these predictions that the lamas sometimes make, and act accordingly, because they're usually for our own benefit. I mean, well, in the case of a high lama, they are for our own benefit. Okay, great. So Shanti, I don't know whether I really answered your question. I hope I did.
Geshe, I think it's actually not my question, someone else's question. No, I don't remember.
It is my Shmuel's question, Venerable.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Shmuel. Okay. Why did I think it was Shanti's? Okay. Probably didn't read right. Yeah. So Shmuel, did they answer your question? Well, I didn't really.
I'll think of how to make my question more precise.
Okay. All right. Do that for next time. Great. Okay. Then going back to, I thought one of them was Shanti's.
Sorry, it's make the mistake when I save it. I don't know why. It was
doesn't matter
at the beginning.
So it doesn't matter. So Shanti, is the second question yours or is it Shmuel's question? The second one about
now?
Yes, it's mine actually.
Okay. All right. It is said in the text that suitable vessels for the Dharma are free from attachment to their own views. I think that general antidotes to attachment are said to be meditating on the impermanence of the object when it's attached to, and sometimes meditating on the negative aspects of the object. If that is correct, do you think these same antidotes are also antidotes to attachments to one's own views? Interesting question. Okay. So attachment, yes, said to be the antidote is, first of all, the impermanence of the particular object and the negative aspects of the object. So let's look at the attachment to, for instance, certain Dharma views. Okay, so if we say the view of emptiness, is the view of emptiness, what is the view of emptiness? Is the view of emptiness what, Shmuel? I'm just going to look for him. I lost him. Whoops, no, I totally lost him. What did I do this time? Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay, great. Okay, I have to look.
Can you just do it a little bit bigger?
Okay, yes. So Shmuel, okay, so yeah, I'll do that. That's a good idea. I'll just blow it up again. Okay, now you're all back. Shmuel, I have a question. What is the view of emptiness, for instance? What is that view? Is the view of emptiness and emptiness and the view of emptiness the same, or is there a difference?
They are different.
They're different. So what is the view of emptiness? What is the view?
The view of emptiness is the mind which holds emptiness to be true.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Is that permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
Good. Very good. So emptiness itself is permanent, but the view of emptiness is impermanent. Is it positive or negative?
It is positive.
Okay. Let me ask you, the medicine for tuberculosis, is it beneficial or harmful?
Beneficial.
Okay, so if I were to take it now, I don't have TB. If I were to take it now, okay. If I were to take it now, I don't have TB. If I were to take it, is it going to help me or is it going to harm me?
It will harm you.
It will harm me. What about the view of emptiness? Will it be beneficial to everyone?
Well, it's
at this point in time. I mean, maybe in the future, but we're talking right now, right here and now. The view on emptiness, the assertion that nothing exists inherently, will it be beneficial to everyone?
Well, it will be beneficial only to a minority.
Yep. Okay. So saying, oh, my view of emptiness is so great. It's so amazing. It's the only one thing, the view on the Four Noble Truths. That's the only. How about the negative aspect? Is there a way in which you can focus on the negative aspect in the way I just demonstrated that could help us to overcome our attachment? After everything I said now. Based on what I said now.
If the view of emptiness would harm me right now, for example, say, then the problem is not with the view of emptiness. The problem is with me. Because
Yeah, but the view of emptiness exists in relation to other things. It doesn't exist in a bubble, does it? So let's say it benefits you right now and you're really attached to it. How does the view of a negative aspect benefit you in this context? So let's say it benefits you. It's of use to you. It's beneficial to you. And you're so attached to it. What does that mean? How does that attachment manifest itself? Do you look down on people who don't have the same view, or you want everyone to hold the same view, right? It would express itself in that way. Therefore, how could your meditation on the negative aspects benefit you to let go of that type of attachment? Feeling it's superior, you are superior, holding this view and so forth.
So
based on what I just said.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot say that meditating on the negative aspects, but just meditating on the limitations of my view, I would say.
Right. I mean, negative, it's not in and of itself negative. When I say negative, emptiness itself is negative. Well, it just depends on the person. But since emptiness doesn't exist inherently, always exists in relation to something else, it's okay to say in certain circumstances, emptiness is harmful. The view of emptiness can be harmful to some people. I mean, in the sense that they couldn't even generate this view, and just thinking about emptiness would possibly cause them to fall into the extreme of nihilism.
But then they would not be actually thinking about emptiness, because they would misunderstand emptiness then.
It's true, but emptiness in itself doesn't benefit them.
So then if the view of emptiness, sorry?
But then emptiness, even though they don't have the right view, but emptiness doesn't benefit them, does it? The view of emptiness doesn't benefit them. In fact, it may trigger a misunderstanding so that it actually harms them.
But just then it would not.
Yeah, go ahead.
But then it would not be the view of emptiness triggering that. It would be their own. Yeah, it wouldn't be the correct view of emptiness triggering.
It is the correct view. You explain the correct view. Just as with the tuberculosis, the medicine of tuberculosis, it's great stuff. It was really expensive. It took years to develop, and still it can be harmful. But don't think of emptiness being in and of itself this independent entity that is just inherently good. It's neither good nor bad. It's in relation to the person. Because if you really don't want to become liberated, you love your ignorance, holding on to inherent existence, then emptiness, the view of emptiness harms it. Right?
Yes.
That's why we're saying anger, is it good or is it bad? It depends on what we want. If we want to be happy, we want happiness, then anger harms that happiness. If hypothetically we wanted suffering, then anger would be beneficial to us. But it just depends on the person.
But if so, the no virtuous actions exist.
They do exist, but only in relation to certain people. Or only in relation to certain aspects.
Because in relation to our happiness, they're virtuous, and in relation to our suffering, they're non-virtuous, because they harm our suffering, then it cannot be said whether they are virtuous or non-virtuous.
Well, they're virtuous in relation to what we want. If hypothetically we wanted to suffer, then anger would be virtuous. And what was it? Love and compassion would be non-virtuous. It always depends on what we desire. So what we wish for, what do we want? We want to be happy. Therefore, whether something is virtuous or not is in relation to that. But in and of itself, it's neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. If it were independently of that, virtuous or non-virtuous, it would be absolutely virtuous or non-virtuous. It would exist inherently as such. That's why there's no inherent good or bad. It's only in relation to something else. Emptiness in itself is neither good nor bad. The view of emptiness in itself is neither good nor bad. It's one. It's good in relation to some, and it's bad in relation to others. Does that make sense? This goes back to what Geshe once said. I told you this story, I think, many times. When he started his teaching, he said, anger is good, the Buddha is bad. Right? He started the teaching, and I was supposed to translate. I translated it. And I was like, what? I asked him, like, what are you saying? That's how he started. But in the end, what he tried to demonstrate is that we say the Buddha is good in relation to what we want. We want to overcome suffering. We want to find lasting happiness. And the Buddha benefits us through his teachings. Therefore, we label good. But then he said the Buddha is bad in relation to harming suffering. So if you wanted to suffer, then the Buddha would be bad, because the Buddha is someone who teaches us to overcome suffering. So it's always in relation to what we want. But in and of itself, I mean, do you have siblings?
Like brother and sister?
Yeah.
Yes.
So are you a brother in and of yourself? No, it's in relation to your brothers and sisters that you're a brother. If you didn't have brothers and sisters, you wouldn't be a brother. So it's always in relation to something else. To say you're a brother, where's that brotherness within you? Nowhere, it can't be found. It's in relation to your siblings, to your brothers and sisters. So likewise with emptiness, likewise with the Buddha. Jimmy, you think about it. Sorry, Shmuel, you think about it. Jimmy's just raised his hand. Go ahead, Jimmy. You want to add to that?
For example, if somebody wants to attain solitary peace, can we say that bodhicitta is bad? So for them, it harms their peace? Or?
Yeah, if they just want it, I mean, bad is a little bit like, it's not beneficial, let's put it that way. So it doesn't benefit them. For that person, if they wanted to achieve solitary peace or self-liberation, well, yeah, bodhicitta wouldn't benefit them. They don't want that, right? Harms them. If bodhicitta were responsible for them to not get solitary peace, then you could even say it harms them. Go ahead, Shmuel, or anyone, if you could disagree. Mm-hmm.
So if I would just ask, are virtuous actions good, without qualifying the questions further, what would you answer?
It depends.
But if I would ask you this in the context of debate, are virtuous actions good?
Yes, they're good and bad both. Okay, I can say yes, they're good, but they're also bad. Like, for instance, is the color blue pretty or is it ugly? Both. Pretty from my perspective, I like the color blue, and ugly from the perspective of someone who doesn't like the color blue. Is it both? Yes. Either you say it's both or you have to say it's neither.
But as far as I know, in debate to a thesis, there is only a yes or no answer.
Yeah, I just gave you the yes or no answer. I said I have two possibilities here. Either I say it's both. So I say yes. Is it good? Yes. Is it bad? Yes. I say yes in both cases. Or I say no to both. Is it good? No. Is it bad? No. Right? In both cases either. But I can't say one is good and the other is bad, or the other way around. That wouldn't make sense.
So if I would ask virtuous actions are good, you would say yes.
Yeah.
If would say they're not good, you would say
yes.
So isn't that a tsa technically from the point of view of debate?
No, it's not a tsa. It's not a tsa. Tsa, it's only if I previously said it was good and now I say it's not good. Right? If I contradict myself. But if right from the beginning I were to say, no, but I didn't, just because something is good, it doesn't mean it's not also bad. Something is beneficial, it can also be harmful. So something can be long and short at the same time. So just because I say it's long and I also say it's short, I'm not contradicting myself, because I'm saying long and short are not contradictory.
But
just think of long and short, right?
Okay.
We
Okay.
have this sense that something is really good and something is really bad.
Mhm.
We have this strong conviction, and it comes down to our political view. It comes to our view in terms of what is acceptable and not, and so forth. But actually, we think about it, it's just like long and short. In relation to one thing, it's long. In relation to something else, is short. So it's both long and short, or it's neither.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? It's a little difficult with like virtues and non-virtues. Of course, we say the Buddha is good. We say the Buddha is good. Love is good. Of course, in general, because as humans, we all share, we have the same wishes, basically. Basically, I'm saying like we want to be happy, we want to be loved, we don't want to be harmed. And in that way, we can say in our society, it's good, of course. But my point is, when it comes to our views in particular, here, that was your original question, the view of the Four Noble Truths, the view of emptiness and so forth, is that virtuous or not? Well, it depends. Or is it beneficial or not? It depends. So to be extremely attached, the whole point why I'm saying it, if I'm really attached to my view, to my Buddhist view, what does that attachment lead to? I'm over-exaggerating. I'm exaggerating the positive aspect of Buddhism. But to some people, it's not beneficial at all. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they're much more beneficial to the individual, help them to live a moral life. And so to let go of that attachment by understanding it's beneficial to some people. And because it's impermanent, it may not always be beneficial as well. People change. I mean, some people in this life, of course, the goal of a Buddhist would be to continue practicing uninterruptedly throughout many lifetimes until we reach our goal. But who knows what happens in the meantime because of the karma we accumulated? Maybe in the next life, I'm an Orthodox Jew because of the karma. Right? And it really benefits me. It really helps me to live a moral and good life until it changes again. So in my next life, the view of emptiness will not be beneficial to me. It will, in fact, possibly harm me. Right? I mean, emptiness itself, the view, or yeah, so or hearing the explanation will actually harm me because I totally misunderstand it. Anyway, think about it. I think it's an important question. I really like this question. To understand that there's nothing that is absolute good or absolute bad. It's always in relation to something else. So think about it and come back with another debate. I spend a lot of time on this because I think it's really important. This question is really important. But I may be wrong, so I'm interested to hear everyone else's view. But this is what it comes down to when we talk about emptiness, for instance. And His Holiness is therefore such a great example because he respects everyone with every view equally. That doesn't mean that he agrees with the view. Of course, he's not saying every view is right. It harms other people, of course. But because of this understanding that nothing exists intrinsically as this and that, His Holiness can be respectful of everyone, right? And we go to the extreme. We go to the extreme, like this is inherently good and this person is inherently bad, and therefore our treatment of people is based on that. I think that's really important to get more of a sense of equanimity. But let me hear what Sneh is saying.
You were just reminding me about some of the Bodhisattva vows and Vajrayana vows of like not teaching emptiness to people before they're ready for it, because it may not be helpful at that time and may cause harm in both contexts. And then I was also reminded by this chat about Paul Williams, who has written these, he was a professor at Bristol University in Buddhist Studies, wrote many books, head of the, UK British Buddhist thing. And so I really liked one of his books, and then I went to Google him, and then I found out he became a Catholic after all that, because he said, after decades of being a Buddhist, because he said that now as he was getting older and all these things, he thought that Buddhism was like a very, I don't know the right word, like despairing, pessimistic, in the sense that he felt like once he died, he would never see his loved ones again. Whereas in Catholicism, you know, after you die, you meet your loved ones again. So he had these, and I was like so surprised, like, you know, being a professor, writing, but still 20, 25 years later, he felt like Catholicism suited him better, and he converted.
Interesting example. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Shanti, you raised your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Geshe, you gave the example of bodhicitta not being beneficial to someone on the practicing for personal liberation.
Okay.
But it is beneficial, right? It's just that that person is not going to be attuned to it. But actually, it's beneficial because they will reach enlightenment quicker, right?
Well, eventually it will be beneficial for them, right? For that person, eventually. But at this point in time, I mean, what I said in the beginning, I'm not talking about the future. I'm talking right now. So at this point in time, they're just not interested. If someone were to force them to meditate on it, they'd probably, you know, be annoyed at that they have to do that, right? I mean, it's a little bit difficult because in general, what do we want? What is it that we naturally want as living beings, as human beings? We want lasting happiness. We want the kind of happiness that we attain once we become liberated or even enlightened, even enlightened. So therefore, that's the kind of happiness we look for, which is why in relation to what we in general want, we can say bodhicitta is beneficial. It's in relation to that. If hypothetically we were the opposite, I don't think living beings being the opposite exist, but let's say there were these beings who are the opposite, well, then bodhicitta wouldn't be beneficial. But just by the way we exist as human beings, as living beings, yes, in the long term it is beneficial. But in the short term, I think if that person even had an aversion to bodhicitta, let's say they meet this person who's bodhicitta and they really don't like them. So every time they hear about bodhicitta, they get angry. So it actually harms them. Think of that kind of extreme scenario. We're not blaming bodhicitta here. It's got nothing to, but still it's in relation to that particular, it harms them. Therefore, attachment to bodhicitta, well, it's not the best thing for everyone. Then we can kind of let go of that attachment. That was the whole point, right? Okay, but I get what you're saying, and I think it's an important discussion we had. So anyway, if you want to you have more questions on that, if you want to go more into it, you're welcome to ask another. Oh, Orit, you raised your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just a short thing from Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche said that the realization of the bodhisattva on the second bhumi are basically the garbage of the bodhisattvas on the third bhumi. So definitely you can't hold on to anything. So.
Right. Yeah, in relation to a bodhisattva of the third bhumi, they're like, second bhumi? That's like kindergarten. Right? Yeah, so it's not as great in relation to what they've achieved. Anyway, think about it. Yeah, Dzongzar Rinpoche is great. Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche, he's very much very clear in explaining that kind of absence of something absolute positive or negative. Yeah, great. All right. Well, since I've got you here, Rit, because the third question is from you, and I want to at least, because I prepared something for it, I thought it was easier to explain or to answer this. Wait, let me just find my material. So I prepared a little thing. Okay, here we go. So, well, first you need to read the question, of course. Where's the question? Reads. Sorry, today we spent a lot of time with the questions, but never mind, I think they're important. I have a bit of a difficulty with the sky and clouds example. I know the dome, this blue dome, doesn't exist, that it's just an optical illusion, but the clouds aren't optical illusions. Okay, you can see the stars because there's no dome, but when you fly through a cloud, it's not clear. Also, when you see pictures of Earth taken from space, you don't see the blue dome, but you see the clouds. A rainbow would work unless seeing the empty nature of phenomena means, and so forth. Yeah, so the cloud. Of course, the cloud exists. So I thought it's best to give you, to kind of explain the example again. Let's go back to the question. Shanti asked, and that's an important question, why is the cessation of the afflictions, the mental afflictions, anger and so forth, why is that considered to be an ultimate truth? It's not emptiness, it's not the ultimate nature of all phenomena, but the absence or the cessation of the afflictions is an ultimate truth. Why? Because the mind that realizes emptiness directly when the afflictions have been removed, well, that mind also realizes the absence of the afflictions in that particular person's mental continuum. So why is that? And I gave you the example of the analogy of the sky. So let's look at this again to understand it. The sky is like the mind. The blue dome, which doesn't exist in the sky, that's like the inherent existence of the mind. It doesn't exist. So yes, it doesn't exist. And then the clouds in the sky, they're like the mental afflictions. They exist, but they can be removed, right? So we're not saying that they don't exist. The mental afflictions very much exist, but they can be removed. That's what it means. So let's assume now we're stretching the analogy a little bit, moving away from reality a little bit. Let's say directly realizing the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the mind, it removes the clouds in the sky. If that were the case, right? Just as directly realizing the lack of inherent existence of the mind eliminates the mental afflictions in the mind, right? In the same way, let's say that were the case, because then the analogy works even better. So, when a practitioner has attained the cessation or elimination of the mental afflictions, while they're absorbed in the antidote of these afflictions, the meditative equipoise that directly realizes emptiness. So this is how it works. You generate the mind that directly realizes emptiness and you remove certain afflictions. You remove certain afflictions. Now they're gone. Then, while you still realize emptiness, this equipoise, this mind, also realizes the absence of these afflictions. So it doesn't just realize the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, including the lack of inherent existence of the mind itself, but it also realizes the absence of these afflictions. Why? And here's the analogy. It's because, or it's similar to the mind that realizes the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the mind. It also realizes the absence of the clouds in the sky, right? So,
but the object is the affliction.
Pardon?
The object that you meditate on, are those the affliction? Because the affliction and the emptiness of the affliction, I can get it.
Yeah. The absence of the affliction. So let's say you have now understood the absence of the blue dome and you've removed the clouds are gone now. So when you realize the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the mind, you also realize the absence of the clouds because they can't be separated. When you understand, usually don't say blue dome, they say there's no obstructiveness, but never mind, that's for us too abstract.
If your objects are the afflictions or the clouds, then if...
No, the objects are not the clouds, the absence of the clouds.
Okay.
Because the clouds are gone. The clouds are now gone. Like I said, let's assume by directly realizing the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the mind, you remove the clouds. This is a little bit stretched. This is, of course, not realistic. But now the clouds are gone. And now when you realize the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the sky, on the basis of, the sky, or the basis, sorry, I shouldn't say in the base of the mind. This is a mistake. On the base of the sky. It should say sky here, not mind. I was thinking, so the mind that realizes the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the sky also realizes the absence of the clouds. So when you look at the sky, focus on the sky, there's no blue dome. And since there are no clouds, you also know the absence of the clouds. So this is the argument of some people, and I don't know whether it makes it so much clearer. In my case, it's helped a little. So when a practitioner has now attained the cessation of the mental afflictions based on having realized emptiness directly, and so while they're still absorbed in the meditative equipoise that directly realizes emptiness, in particular the emptiness of the mind, well, then this mind also realizes the absence of these afflictions on the basis of the mind. Okay, Leora, you raised your hand?
Yeah, because I have difficulties understanding it.
Okay.
If the yogi, while he sees emptiness directly, at the same time sees the absence of afflictions, he also sees the absence of many other objects. That's why maybe, or it asked if this was the object of meditation.
Wait, the absence of many other objects.
And
what other objects?
And absence of elephant in my mind. He says it because there's no elephant in my mind. And it won't be. So my question would be, how do you respond to it? And also, if this is a debatable issue, whether cessation of afflictions is the ultimate truth, if this is debatable, what would be the argument, the reasoning to argue that it's not ultimate truth, that it's not like emptiness?
Well, first of all, the absence of your mind being an elephant. Well, the thing is, the absence of the afflictions, that was caused because of realizing emptiness. You know, it's an absence that was caused by having realized emptiness directly. So that realization removed something from the mind. That is, let's say, like, that's what I said. Let's assume the direct realizing the absence of the blue dome on the basis of the mind removes the clouds in the sky. So that would be the argument then, saying, no, it's that realization that was responsible for this removal of the afflictions in the mind. And therefore, when you continue to realize the lack of inherent existence, which is responsible for the absence of the afflictions, then that mind also perceives that absence. Honestly, I have a hard time myself with this. I don't understand. I don't know why it's so necessary. Like I'm saying, I said before, they base it on a few scriptures, on a few scriptural passages, like the 60 verses of reasoning, for instance, the 60 stanzas of reasoning by Nāgārjuna, as an example. So where it seems to be saying that this is what the mind realizes. So they base it on that and try to explain it. It's not such a I mean, even if you don't accept it, it's not the end of the world. If you don't accept lack of inherent existence, there's a problem.
That wasn't my problem. My problem wasn't, I think your question helped, was that me now as an ordinary person, I can realize that the blue dome doesn't exist. So it's like, I don't understand the other, why is it necessary? But from what you said, maybe, and again, it's just an assumption, is that when you see emptiness directly, then this blue dome disappears. It's like this optical illusion doesn't exist. It does not appear to the mind anymore.
Right, because you're realizing the absence of the blue dome. But by realizing the absence of the, and of course, this is a little bit different here. Of course, it's an analogy of an object. Like you just look at the sky and you realize the absence of the blue dome. And so therefore you also realize the absence of the clouds at the same time. That is the analogy. So that's not that difficult, although the clouds could potentially exist, but they don't exist in this case. Of course, the analogy falls short when it comes to that which it exemplifies. So in this case, with the mind realizing emptiness directly, I get why Leora says, like, well, that seems to be really stretching it. Why insisting on it being an ultimate truth? Yeah, I know, I get that. When we debated it, it always felt like, why insisting on that? But we also tried to understand where they were coming from, and that was helpful, that example. But to tell you the truth, I'm still not that happy with it. I don't see the point.
For me, the questions with ultimate and cessation, I put it aside. I just try to understand the example.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, for the time being, it doesn't have such great relevance for us. So maybe it's good to leave it at this. And maybe there's this deep point behind it that we'll only understand later. So then we'll pick it up when we're ready, right? Okay. And then Sneh, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Geshe, I was wondering, is this discussion parallels the same thing when we talk about, moving through the path, that at every stage, when you have a realization of emptiness, in the first path, you get rid of some afflictions. And then on the second, isn't this the same thing? We're saying that the realization of emptiness somehow creates a cessation of certain afflictions. And that keeps happening till we get to the 10th stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's true. That keeps happening with these different levels. Starting on the path of seeing, you start eliminating certain afflictions. Yes, you do. Right? That's absolutely true. But the point is when you arise from the meditative equipoise, you become aware of the absence of these afflictions. Fine. But why is it that while you're realizing emptiness directly, why do they insist you also have to realize the absence of these afflictions? Why not wait when you rise from it, right? I mean, the answer of those who assert, they would say, well, the mind just realizes it. That's just in the nature of the mind. But yeah, I
also find it confusing because, I also hear many teachers say when you are doing the meditation of emptiness, nothing appears other than the absence of, intrinsic
nothing appears other than ultimate truth. Therefore, the absence of the afflictions is said to be ultimate. Yeah, but I know it's like a circular argument. Yeah, exactly. That's what they say. Yeah, it kind of shows that people don't pay that much attention to it. Exactly as you're saying, the lamas, the Geshe keep saying, when you realize emptiness directly, all that appears to your mind is emptiness. Keep saying that. And then you have this other aspect. Yeah, maybe it's just a quote that was misunderstood. And so now we try to make it work by making our mind more flexible to think along these lines. But in actuality, to be honest, to me, it's not really a huge point. And just from all the teachings I received, it was always just ever mentioned, but no one has really explained it in that much detail time and again that seems to indicate it's so relevant, right? But Shanti asked the question. It's important when you study philosophy. It does come up. It's part of the study of Uma or of Madhyamika. So I thought to address it. But okay, anyway, so great. Let's go back to the text because we've got a little bit I want to cover today. Sorry, I spent a little bit more time on the questions. I hope that was okay. But those are good questions because they all relate to everything else we do, especially they related to emptiness. Precious Garland. Yeah. All right. So we've heard about the qualities. What does it mean to be a suitable vessel of the Dharma? And here again, this is, of course, something that we can directly check. Am I unprejudiced or not? And in relation to what Orit said last time also, well, we need to check our own mind. Some people are more prejudiced than others. I might find a lot of prejudice in my own mind when it comes to certain explanations. I think Sneh gave the example of Tantra, which is unusual for us. And if we've not, well, some of you definitely have very strong imprints, but her sentiment or her experience was similar to mine, even for different reasons. So even for different reasons, and I understand that. So I was like, first, this is weird. This is just, is this just culture or is this the Dharma? So yeah, important therefore to check. Are we prejudiced or not? Are we opinionated? Are we open enough to new ideas? And in that way, I
think that if the teacher of the Tantra was someone that you or Sneh were interested in, then it's like triumph. But I solved the idea why the unprejudice is in the beginning, so I'm okay.
Sorry, I didn't get the first part of what you just said.
I said that you need to begin with interest, then you put it at the end or something. But
right.
just
The
think,
order.
even though that you might have prejudice towards Vajrayana, then if that you are interested in the teacher who give the teaching, then I think you would go.
Okay, so your argument is more about I understand, more about the order. But I think it's if you're unprejudiced towards any kind of teaching, then the next step would be interest, right? But again, it's good to keep that debate open about the order and so forth. So I'm glad there are different views on this. But anyway, so fast mentioned here is this being unprejudiced, being unbiased, being not opinionated, etc. Okay, so and then the next one, intelligent. There's this quote also by Bhava Viveka: peace will never be found while prejudice plagues the mind. That makes sense. Definitely that this kind of peace of like this openness and peace of mind seem to go hand in hand, while this opinionated, here we're talking about an extreme sense. Of course, you can agree with one or disagree with something else. That doesn't mean unprejudiced. It's always an extreme measure. It's similar to like wanting something and having attachment towards it. So wanting something, that's okay. Wishing for something, wanting for something, even desiring it when it doesn't go into an extreme. It's always these extreme kind of notions. Anyway. But then the next one is intelligence. Intelligence is a bit of a tricky word. It can be easily misunderstood. So I think it needs to be explained. We're all intelligent to a certain degree. Animals have a certain intelligence. It's always relative. Intelligent when it comes to such and such, and not that intelligent when it comes to something else. In Tibetan, it's funny because intelligence goes as far as saying someone is intelligent when they can memorize. But that's just one type of intelligence. So they're intelligent because they can memorize, but they're not that intelligent when it comes to the debate, or the other way around. Some can debate really well and have a hard time memorizing. And so they say this person is intelligent in relation to such and such, but not so intelligent in relation to. And then there are those who are really intelligent when it comes to practical things. They're really good at organizing things. It's a different type of intelligence again. Therefore, I think it's important to understand we all have a type of intelligence, but what does it refer to here? Possessing the discernment to distinguish between explanations that are logically sound and those that are not. And of course, this intelligence can grow. We become better at it. These qualities are not saying, well, if you don't have them 100%, forget about the Dharma, just go home, do something else. This is not what this is saying here, of course. It's a process basically to enhance our level of being biased or unbiased for that matter. And it's more like the self-reflection. What am I lacking? Because they're just an obstacle to our own practice. Here, the discernment to distinguish between something that's logically sound and those are not. Well, that can improve. But we have a basic sense, oh, this person is just telling me some kind of rubbish. It doesn't make any sense, versus, oh, this actually makes sense. Yeah, so this kind of discernment, and I guess we all have that to a certain level. This discernment stems, of course, from their critical approach to the teaching. So for a vessel of the Dharma, critical approach still should be critical. Critical, again, not to the extreme, like always questioning everything and then never stopping and never coming to some kind of conclusion and never, that's an extreme. But of course, on the other hand, to always have a sense, oh, does that make sense or not? Does this accord with my own experience? To always check. So which is characterized by a healthy skepticism that questions and analyzes all aspects. Such an approach is not only encouraged, it is considered essential to the study and contemplation of the Dharma. Oh, this reminds me of Orit's comment today, this little time, so I'm not going to read it today, but you gave me this feedback. I'll do it next time, Orit. But also saying, what is the whole goal of this class, for instance? And that's an important question. What is my goal teaching this class? I mean, this is not a debate class, so we're not debating as such. Anyway, traditionally classes, you may bring up a few debates, but the debate is done in a different setting, which, of course, I don't know, the kind of structured traditional debate would be difficult because that needs to be learned. But getting together and analyzing it, maybe having a discussion group is definitely beneficial because you can learn from each other. Or just on your own time, to take time and question and relate it back to your own experience, and have that kind of healthy skepticism is really beneficial. And my goal is really, what do I wish? Well, if you study this, that first of all, you get a good understanding of not just this material, but also that whatever you study here helps you to study other Buddhist topics, make that easier. And of course, then take some time to reflect on it and internalize it, to make it part of everyday life, and hopefully use it to work towards liberation and enlightenment. So that would be my goal. I mean, it's pretty, when it comes to liberation and enlightenment, yeah, well, that's kind of a little far away, but still, I mean, working towards it, I think that would be amazing. I mean, that would be definitely, I'd be really happy if that would be happening. But of course, I need to first do it myself and not expect it from others. Anyway, this is just a little bit in response with regard to what Orit said, but like I said, I'll read it next time. But going back to the skepticism, Shmuel also asked about this last time, like with regard to logic and so forth. Of course, our mind right now is limited in its ability to reason, but we can enhance that, and we should, the limited reasoning ability that we have, we should apply it as much as we can. So it is worth emphasizing here that Buddhism highly values critical thinking. In that way, it's quite different from some other spiritual systems that may not emphasize this, which is this critical thinking based on logic and personal experience as compared to blind faith. So questioning, and I'm not saying that every Buddhist follows this. I mean, there are a lot of Buddhists who are more culturally Buddhist. I mean, they don't know so much about Buddhism, and there's a lot of blind faith as well. But here, this is talking about, of course, really studying the Dharma and internalizing it in a more profound way. And in that case, blind faith is a no-no. Questioning and analyzing the Dharma prevent us from blindly accepting teachings without understanding their true meaning and relevance. I mean, it may not be relevant for us at this point. There are certain teachings that are more relevant for us than there are others. I mean, tantric practice is a good example. If someone is not ready to do tantric practice, it doesn't really fully benefit them, and it may be much more beneficial to engage in meditations more on death, impermanence, and so forth, in preparation, of course, for later tantric practice. So this promotes a deeper understanding of their subtleties, nuances, and interconnections. Very important. The subtleties of everything. So every time you hear teaching, you can go subtler and understand more of its nuances. I mean, like, there's so much more to, I mean, just the Four Noble Truths. Sometimes people are like, oh, Four Noble Truths again, but there's so many different levels. And every time you hear about the Four Noble Truths, as an example, you can go deeper, understand more nuances, and understand how it's interconnected, thus avoiding, of course, misunderstandings or misinterpretations. Critical thinking and questioning also help to overcome doubts and uncertainty, leading to a more robust and unwavering faith based on reason and experience, in the validity of certain Buddhist concepts not yet fully understood. Of course, there's a lot of concepts that we haven't fully understood yet. So having not realized them yet, well, for the time being, we have to rely on faith, on belief in them. But it's not a blind kind of faith. It's a much more robust, a much more reliable faith, because it's based on reason and experience. Very important idea. Does belief exist in Buddhism, like faith in the sense of not devotion, kind of devotional faith, or kind of faith when you see a great being and you're so moved or inspired. I'm talking about like certain things like reincarnation or the working of karma, and there's so many aspects. The benefits of practicing Tantra. We don't fully understand this, but we can have belief that it's beneficial, but only until we fully understand it. It's just a temporary state. A Buddha doesn't believe, a Buddha knows. So the goal is to, of course, know, but for the time being, until we do reach that knowledge, well, faith can be beneficial, or is beneficial if it's based on reason and experience to keep us going. So later on, you'll hear the explanation on understanding or realizing what are higher rebirth, what is the highest good, to realize liberation, to actually know it. It's beneficial, but not necessary. You don't need to realize Buddhahood in order to strive towards it. I mean, you have to have some rough kind of sense of what it means, some rough understanding, but it doesn't mean you have to have incontrovertible knowledge or realization of what it means. So here in this case, there's faith based on reasoning, but it's still with this critical kind of approach. So that's very important. Since the Dharma is meant to be actively applied to our lives, investigation and analysis motivate us to put the teachings into practice, to test their validity through personal experience, and to use them to transform our mind. All right, I hope this is a little beneficial. Probably you know all this already, but this all goes back to the kind of intelligence that we need here. An openness, an unbiased kind of state of mind, but at the same time, always checking. And even if you don't have, well, you don't debate, or you don't have a discussion group, for instance, I mean, you just, every time you read something, you take some time, you reflect on it, like, how's this relevant to me? Does this make sense? There's so many different ways in which you can analyze it. You can compare it to what you learned earlier. There seemed to be a contradiction or not, like other teachings you're taking, other classes you're taking, or other books you've read, or whatever you've done in the past. So in terms of like just comparing it to other Buddhist knowledge you have, or other knowledge about Buddhism, then you take the text itself. Is there any contradiction within the text itself? Earlier mention of something, later mention of something. You can compare it like to other ideas. Is there a relation between this idea and another idea? How does it relate back to the Four Noble Truths? Extremely important. Everything you learn in Buddhism you should be able to relate it back to the Four Noble Truths, because that's the framework. My own experience, how's this relevant in terms of my own experience? Is it relevant to me? Can I apply this right away? In what way can I apply it? Is there an aspect of it that's beneficial and the rest of it is too abstract? So there's so many ways to analyze. There's no limit to it. And when you debate, in the beginning, the debate is very much focused on, you say this, you say that, this, but almost like, yeah, it's memorized basically. But then when you start the process, especially after a year or two, the sky's the limit. You can debate on anything. You don't run out of anything, because there's always something else you can look at. But it's just this process of using your mind. And it's not a matter of coming to some kind of conclusion, it's this and not that. It's more the process that makes your mind more flexible and helps you to take that which you learn onto a deeper level. And that's what it's all about. All right. Okay. Anyway, then there's interest. So are we interested? And here, interest in Tibetan, it's the word töndunyeva. Töndunyeva is not exactly the word interest. Interest is tonang. It's a little less strong, actually, the word. So here the word is stronger. So I use the word deeply interested, genuinely interested. I kind of added that, though I didn't add it to the word interested, since I used a translation by Ruth Surnam, and she just wrote interested for töndunyeva. So in order to not mess with her translation, because saying interested for töndunyeva, I just added the deeply. I added the deeply. But please know it's more than just being interested. It's really, but it's hard to find a real word. It's not striving. That's a different word.
Engagement.
Yeah, engagement. No, no, it's not engagement. It's not that strong. It's kind of like being interested because you want to go in that direction. Oh, I don't know. It's like it has the connotation of wishing for it, aspiring towards it. Though that's a different word, actually. Striving for something. Yeah, I cannot put it into English. It has so many different meanings. If you look it up in the dictionary, it has definitely the meaning of interested. So, and it also depends on how it's used. So in this context, I think a deep interest or genuine interest is a good translation. So you can also use it like aspiring towards such and such, but that's not what it means here. It's not used in that way. So therefore, with regard to the third quality, suitable vessels of the Dharma are characterized by being deeply interested in the Dharma. Genuine and deep interest in the Buddha's words ignites the motivation to study, contemplate, and practice his teachings. So it is the driving force for engaging with the Dharma. So it's not engaging yet, but it's the driving force for engaging with the Dharma and reaping its benefits, as it stimulates curiosity and eagerness to learn. So it gives rise to a curiosity, I want to learn more. And not just that, this eagerness to learn more, not just being curious, but also eager to learn, leading to a deeper understanding of the Dharma's complex concepts and their practical application in daily life. As our practice deepens, such genuine interest in the Dharma also helps us overcome the many obstacles we encounter on our spiritual journey. So especially when you practice the Dharma, there are going to be obstacles. We have to really think that's part of it. It's a good thing. We don't necessarily feel that way. We want smooth ride. It's almost like we want nirvana right here and now. But no, it's part of it. Understanding that it's a good thing, because negative stuff comes up. They're usually compared with like washing your clothes. You know, if your Dharma practice is like purifying the mind, it's like washing your clothes. If you expect the water to be clear and clean when you soak your clothes in it, that's unrealistic. The dirt needs to come out. And in that way, it comes up, it comes to the surface. You know, these obstacles come to the surface by way of you experiencing them. That's a good thing. But with this genuine interest in the Dharma, it helps us to overcome these obstacles, to not despair, but to face them with courage until we've overcome them. So making us more likely to persevere through challenges, doubts, and distractions. In addition, our interest can be contagious and inspire others to explore and potentially benefit from the teachings. I think that's really important as well. You know how it can be contagious when someone is really into the Dharma and they love doing it, and they're, you know, you're friendly with them, you spend some time with them. Their actions can actually inspire us to act accordingly. So this kind of genuine interest, the genuine fascination, the genuine liking, I know, I think interest is a good word. So this genuine interest in the Dharma. And then, of course, there are a few others, two more that Chandrakirti mentions. I think we can go through them next time because time is up. So I was able to finish a little bit today besides the question. But yeah, there's, of course, respect, and there's also reliance, which are slightly different to the ones we mentioned before. Now, again, those are just guidelines. It's not saying you can't practice the Dharma if you've got a bit of bias, or if you, I don't know, don't have that deep interest. These are all qualities. We start off with them, but we should also keep them in mind and work with them and check time and again. Do I have this quality? Am I making any progress? Can I deepen this particular quality? Because the more I deepen, the more I enhance these qualities, the easier it is for me to internalize the Dharma and actually bring it into my daily life. And that's, of course, the whole goal. That's most important. Make this part, because these are all methods. They're all methods for transforming the mind in a positive way. And that's, yeah, the best way we can use the Dharma. And the reason we study it is really for that. It's in preparation for that. But of course, without fully understanding it, we don't know how to internalize it. All right. Okay. So hopefully I didn't bombard you too much today. And we had a little bit of a discussion. Yeah, so anything, it's great. Your input is really helpful. Your questions are great. So please keep them coming. Okay. So now it's time for me to shut up.
Just Geshe-ma, if you can stop the sharing, please.
Oh, of course. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yes, of course. Yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, I forgot. Now we had a break last time, so it took only 1 week for me to forget that I should stop the sharing sometimes. All right, anyway, let's do some meditation. All right. Starting with some mindfulness of the breath. Now, having covered some of the characteristics for being a suitable vessel of the Dharma, let's do some self-reflection. To check whether there still is room for improvement when it comes to these qualities. First of all, how unprejudiced are we really? Do we have strong attachment to our own views? And aversion towards the views of others? Do we have a tendency to be opinionated? Or are we open and ready to learn and grow? Especially when it comes to the different teachings of the Dharma. And then how about our ability to question? Do we possess that kind of intelligence? That applies discernment and a healthy type of skepticism. Comparing what we've learned to other topics. Analyzing how it relates to the Four Noble Truths. Or most importantly, how it is relevant to our own life. That is, how can we integrate what we've studied? And use it to transform our mind. But this openness in the form of being unprejudiced, and this intelligent approach, by analyzing and investigating everything, are not enough. It's also important to develop a deep and genuine interest in the teachings. So that they become more of a part of our daily life. When we're with other people, when we're working, and engage in other so-called worldly activities. To have the Dharma ever present. Due to our deep interest. In its different teachings. helping us to use our free time to learn more, read more, so that we can go deeper into the different layers of the Dharma. Which of course also helps us when we face obstacles. Which from the point of view of the Dharma is actually a good thing. Since it means the removal of karmic hindrances. Therefore, this genuine interest will help us to overcome obstacles and help us to persevere through all challenges, doubts, and distractions. And possibly inspire others to learn about the Dharma. So in short, it's good to realize where we need to deepen these qualities, where there's room for improvement. To become an even more suitable vessel for the Dharma. And now to conclude this analysis, let's focus a few moments just single pointedly on whatever insight, whatever conclusion we've come to as a result of this analysis. Then let's finally dedicate whatever virtues we've accumulated today by studying, reflecting, and meditating on the Precious Garland. May it, of course, help us to further develop all the necessary qualities and remove all obstructions to eventually reach enlightened state of a Buddha for the benefit of each and every sentient being. And in the meantime, to reach that goal, may our great spiritual and great realized masters continue to guide us and have long and healthy lives. And of course, may all the virtue we've accumulated also positively affect beings around us, especially where we live in our own countries. May the virtue cause all those who were kidnapped to be released soon. And may, of course, may the conflict soon subside. And people on both sides learn to respect and love each other. And not just in Israel, but all over the world. May these senseless conflicts come to an end. So with this in mind, let's recite the dedication prayers. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings, without exception, into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Denzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, thank you. Have a great week, and I see you again next Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-ma. Thank you,
Thank you,
Deepa.
Deepa.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Shema.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Gadalik.
ביי. היה לנו הפגזה קודם, התלבטתי אם להישאר או לא.
Galit is living in the north, and the north now is not quite in Israel, so she's very brave. They are being bombed daily.
Because it was attacked before, and I was so afraid, so I wanted to run to the bomb shelter, but I said, okay, I'm in the Zoom, I cannot do it. So
You took shelter in the Dharma. Good for you.
yeah, in the Sangha, in the Dharma and in the Sangha.
Right. Yeah.
Bye.